Hey, this is Charles Band, and you're listening to WithoutYourHead.com.
Welcome to the station of decapitation Without Your Head. I'm Nasty Neal, and I'm joined by Don Coscarelli. It's very awesome to have you here.
Hey, this is my pleasure. So glad to be here.
Excellent. I hear you laughing at the station of decapitation. For
That's
a lot of time,
I like that.
Thank you. A lot of time listeners will know Phantasm is a movie I grew up with. I absolutely love. And it was so amazing to see the remastered Blu-ray. It's so clear. And sometimes older movies won't look so great if it's real cleaned up, but Phantasm looks great.
Hey, thanks for saying that, man. We really made an effort to try to keep it as original as possible while still making it much clearer and make those blacks richer and the audio just kick ass. It's I'm so proud of this restoration.
Yeah, you can even see urine in the movie now, which I think is a big selling.
Yeah, well, for many years there, Neal, the urine disappeared entirely because some disinterested tape operator turned the gain up too much, and that white floor just blew out. But now it's basically the sequence that we're talking about. Let's bring everybody up to speed. Our star of the movie, young Mike, has gone into the mausoleum, and he is confronted by this strange spherical weapon that's chasing him around the mausoleum, and he gets grabbed by this villainous caretaker, and this sphere slams into the head of the caretaker and drills out his brain and sucks out all the blood, and the guy falls flopping to the floor as his death throes. We were so proud as young filmmakers because we just had a sheet of actually it was a beer and apple juice to make it look like he pissed himself as he died on the floor. And for years on the VHS tapes, you didn't even see it. It was just a white floor. But now that it's perfectly all, dialed in, you can see this oozing urine pool the guy's in as he dies. So the hardcore fans love it.
Yeah. Could you always see the reflection of the guy in the sphere? Because I was watching, I was like, I don't remember seeing that before, but it's so clear on the new one.
I think it just has to do with resolution. Over the years, hey, it's a tribute that Phantasm was able to play in the days of, those VHS tapes and even the standard def DVDs. But now it's just so much clearer, and you can see. Yeah, the funny part is I used to always say is you can see me in every sphere shot because I'm behind the camera, and it's in the distant reflection. If you look, if you still frame it and really look hard.
Yeah. So you also have a book out, A True Indie, which I read in one night. I was hooked on it. And
wow, nice. Thank you.
That was great. And I honestly went in thinking I'd skim through it before the interview because I didn't have a long time. And I started reading, and I just ended up reading the whole book. So
that's great to hear.
Yeah, I loved it. So the tall man, and I don't say this to be a tough guy, but I grew up watching horror movies, so not too many things scared me in horror movies, but the tall man always did. And so when you're writing about the idea for the tall man, and you knew Angus Scrimm from working with him previously, so you wanted him to play the villain. So how much of the tall man became the tall man because of Angus Scrimm? Like, did you just make that character around Angus?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the beauty of knowing an actor and writing a role for them, because Angus was the first adult actor I'd ever worked with, and truthfully, on the very first movie that I worked with when I was practically a teenager, he literally intimidated and frightened me, honestly. And so I was able to channel some of that when I was creating the role for him of this evil, nefarious tall man. And yet at the same time, I had no clue that Angus had the capacity or the capability to conjure up this creepy character. And, he in person, Angus was a very urbane, gentle, intellectual. And when he put on that costume and get on camera, he was able to summon up some really dark stuff, and it worked because it had an impact on people. And to this day, folks are still afraid of him and his character.
Yeah. In the book, you mentioned about when you're writing Phantasm, a lot of it had to do with your fear of death, which you said was something you had throughout your life. And when I talked to Angus, it was later in his life.
I still have a fear of death.
Okay.
But I'm able to moderate it a little bit.
All right. Well, I was going to ask is when I talked to Angus, he knew like the time was coming that he wasn't going to be here very long, and it's a really poignant interview I have with him where he was happy with his life. So later, how did that affect your fear of death, like being around Angus in his last few years?
Well, look, Angus became a dear friend of my entire family. He was almost like a family member, and it's so wonderful that you were able to meet him and interview him because I'm sure you can attest. He really was just a wonderful, charming man, and left a gaping hole when he passed. But as I relate in the book, it was ironic because he and I had made these horror films together, and yet the first and only time I've ever been with anyone as they died was with Angus, and it was a really memorable and emotional moment that still a little tough to process, but he's a towering figure in horror movie history, and I'm so proud of the legacy that he's left. And I still today meet fans and many of them like you who are touched by him, who met him in person, and they just have such high regard for him.
Yeah. I was at that Fright Fest where I think it was the last convention he was at, and even then he was a sweet guy.
Was that at the Texas Frightmare weekend?
Yeah, Frightmare. I'm sorry, Fright Fest.
Yeah, that was a good time. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what I know you talk about Reggie in the book, but what made him like special from the first movie to the sequels, where he becomes the star of the Phantasm movies? What was it about that character?
It's an amazing evolution. Reggie Banister has just been a stalwart and important member of the Phantasm cast. In the first film, his screen time is rather limited because basically we just establish him as this, sweet-natured, guitar-slinging ice cream vendor. Who's a loyal friend to the two brothers who are the protagonists in the film. But Neal, there's a moment in the first Phantasm where the brothers and the Reggie character have seen some really weird stuff happening, and some of their friends in the town have been murdered by the tall man, and they regroup and they're trying to figure out how to deal with all of this stuff. And the camera kind of floats in on Reggie, and he just has this intensely macho moment where, I see it all now. We got to snag that tall dude, and stomp the shit out of him. And that moment of watching him erupt in this, you had this sort of a hippie guitar ice cream man, and suddenly I could see we might have a freaking action hero there. And so in Phantasm 2, he just rose to the occasion, and Phantasm 3, he got more. In Phantasm 2, then he created his 4-barrel shotgun, and he's just an amazing and original character. You just never be able to replace him.
Mm-hmm. And I think I mentioned this on the show a lot. Phantasm and Evil Dead are like the two franchises where it's the good guys in like all of them. A lot of the other franchises really just about the villain, and you have a great villain, but the hero is throughout Phantasm.
That's true. But the thing is that they're unassumingly. It's also the nature of the way the movie was made. It was made on such modest means, and in terms of our choices of actors, none of them were any kind of stars, and some of them had never really acted before, and yet, all of them really pretty much rose to the occasion. And the characters of Mike and Reggie, and certainly Mike and his brother, played by Bill Thornbury, these, look, I'd like to take credit for it all, Neal, but, some of these, I lucked into a fantastic cast. Michael Baldwin, maybe one of the great child actors of all time, playing the lead role. I mean, so fortunate in that.
Mm-hmm. And in your book, you mentioned that Kat and Angus didn't know that like their characters were the same character in the movie. And did they not know till they saw the finished movie?
Well, here's the deal. Okay, so for those listening who have never seen Phantasm, we established early on in the opening scenes that our evil character, the tall man, is actually a shapeshifter, and he's able to shift shape from this alluring, sensual, blonde woman into this tall, creepy, old funeral grave, whatever you'd call him, he's an undertaker. And so the thing is that I didn't really have that in the original script. I had those as two distinct characters, but then I started to realize, this could be really weird. What if the tall man was actually, in some scenes he was a she, and that's kind of the sex swapping thing is a bizarre thing. And so I decided to go for it, and I took some of the scenes we'd already shot and I put them together in a way so it was what we called the lady in lavender would transform into the tall man, and it worked well. But the thing was that the actors never really knew that I was doing that until I had edited the scenes together, and then I did show them the movie, and they were completely stunned. But once they saw it with an audience and they saw that it worked, they were quite happy with the result.
Yeah. The book obviously covers your whole movie career. So how close was the Silver Bullet that was made? How close was it to the one that you were writing?
Not very, unfortunately. You're talking about in the 80s. I had an amazing opportunity to work with mostly on a Stephen King project that ultimately was called Silver Bullet. And I was brought in early, and there was a producer, his name was Dino De Laurentiis, who at the time seemed to have a lock on all the Stephen King books, and he was making them one after another. And he had this book called Cycle of a Werewolf, which he was going to turn into a movie that became Silver Bullet. And I worked on the screenplay, and I had a lot of really good concepts in it that I thought could have been great. But unfortunately, in the process of getting the script finished, I just didn't see eye to eye with the producer on it. In fact, in the book, as I tell the one story, our screenplay draft really had some problems. And Stephen King happened to come into New York City for a meeting with De Laurentiis. And I was invited with the co-writer to sit with him, and immediately began telling him about all the problems we were having with the script, and that we wished that he would step in and write a screenplay for us, but he told us he didn't have time. But he did say that he would think about the problems and give us a response. And a day or two later, this fax arrived from King, and I remember it being like 3 pages of like single-spaced typewritten text. And Stephen King not only is he a national treasure, but he's one of the greatest novelists he's the he's the Mark Twain of our era, the horror Mark Twain, and he solved all the problems in this document that he sent to us. And we were so ecstatic when we read it, and we took it into De Laurentiis to go tell him, we could take this idea and fix that and this and that. And De Laurentiis just grunted and tossed the pages over his shoulder as if throwing them out in the trash. He didn't get it. And so that was pretty much the time when I left that project.
Yeah. Real quick too is it's really cool to read about like how you made things work with a low budget on various movies, and I never knew that the sphere was just like thrown in the original Phantasm. Did David ever like kid anybody with it? And I always think if you threw something like that, it would like spiral, but I guess he threw it where it just would not spiral.
The guy, his name was David Brown. He was our art director, and he had a pretty good fastball. He got behind the camera and threw it a few times, and we just happened to hit this sweet spot of shooting it in reverse, but also in slow motion, and it just looked like it was levitating along the way. You know, a lot of the other sphere effects were created with a lot of cellophane tape and fishing line, and that's one of the beauties of this new steelbook release of Phantasm, is that we've gone through and while keeping the integrity of the movie intact, I've been able to digitally erase any sign of any tape or fishing line that we used for all of our effects, and I'm so happy because the scenes just play great in this new steelbook.
Yeah, they do, definitely. And there's no CG Jabba in the movie. Just, you take out stuff that you don't need to see.
No, that's true. We cleaned it up, and the restoration is beautiful. But, the thing that's the nice about it is that, the original photography was good. It's just that some of the technology to get it to people, with VHS and DVD was just not very good. And now with the state of the art, this transfer, and with the sound, especially a beautiful sound restoration in 5.1 Dolby Digital, and the music is awesome, and the impact is great, and and then Welgo put it out in this collectible steelbook, which I know a lot of people collect the steelbooks, but Phantasm has never looked better than this release.
I agree. Yeah, it's amazing. And as a big wrestling fan, I was very happy to read that you two are also a big wrestling fan, which I could probably talk to you for hours about.
We could. I love wrestling. It's pro wrestling, that is.
Right.
I just think it's one of the undersung dramatic and comedic mediums that we have, and I made jokes 100%. There. My joke in my book, Shakespeare would have loved writing a booking for pro wrestling, I think, because you have those monologues that the wrestlers spout off, and some of them are so damn good. There's nothing like pro wrestling. It's great.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate talking to me. It's been a lot of fun, Don, and I hope to do it again sometime.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Neal. This has just been great. Thanks for supporting the film, The Phantasm, and the book. Terrific. Thank you.
I honestly loved them both. Not just because you're here. They were great.
Oh, that's so nice of you to say.
Yeah. Hi, this is Jill Six, and you're listening to WithoutYourHead.com.